Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So what do I love most about movies? One of the things I love absolutely most when it comes to movies is the twist in the end, where you think that something is going on, but it turns out that no, there is actually something completely different going on, but because you were looking in the wrong direction, you didn't see what the director did with his right hand when you were looking at his left hand. But where does it originate from? Which is the first movie that had a twist in the end, so to speak? Many people are pointing out that it was the movie Stage Fright from 1950, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, who was the original twist in the end. But I always thought that shouldn't it technically be, the testament of Dr. Mabuse that is, the inventor of the twist, or is that not regarded to have that accolade because the twist was sort of more in the middle of the movie rather than in the end of the movie? It doesn't really matter, because the same year as Stage Fright came, another movie came out that also has, in my opinion, a pretty damn snazzy twist to itself. But let's find out how good that twist is and how good the rest of the movie is, shall we? This is Cage of Gold. So we have a young woman in post-war Britain. She is remarried. Her old husband, has been dead since World War II, and now she's going out with this doctor guy that she's going to marry. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, her dead husband shows up out of nowhere, being very much alive, and he wants to insert himself into her life again. He essentially wants them to, continue the marriage that they had. But Judith really doesn't want anything, with him to do, because, she discovered that, he wasn't the nice guy that, she thought he was, and she's trying to reject him, but he forces himself, into her life, and, they start to have this relationship, and the fact is that he is a fun guy to be around, and she has a lot more fun with him than, with a doctor, considering this was the 50s and he is a, conservative doctor in post-war Britain. How fun do you think he can be? So she's actually going to go for it. She's going to try to make this thing work, and, she's going to get married to him once again, and maybe this all can work out. But does he maybe in fact have some, shady reasons for actually, getting married to her? And why did he, cancel his trip to France just to, get in touch with her again? That's what we're gonna find out a little bit later. Now, in the hands of, Alfred Hitchcock, I believe that Cage of Gold could be a very fascinating movie, because the story is really good, and it's a very good, love triangle that we're having. And there are certain segments of this movie that is really good, but the fact is that I wish that they could have focused on some things and they could have, left out other things entirely. There's a lot of sequences and moments that not only could have used, some trimming, they could have used an, entire amputation, in my opinion, because there is a lot of things where, nothing happens, and then they sort of rushes by the things that I was more interested in seeing more of. But it is all saved in the third act. We'll get to that in a second. But let's talk first about the acting in this movie. It's good, but the standout performance is, of course, Herbert Loom, who mostly shows up in the French segment of this movie, even though that, the French segment is one of these things that basically could have been cut entirely. But on the other hand, if we cut that one, we would have gotten rid of Herbert Loom, which would have been a tragedy. So I'll guess it is best that this sequence of the movie is still in it. The fact is that we are engaged in what's happening. We're really feeling bad for Judith, for being trapped in this cage of gold, because of course, he has some rather horrible things going on, and hopefully she will come out of this with her, sanity intact. But the fact is that this movie is not saved, but I would say vastly elevated by the third act, where they pull, as I said, a very impressive twist, but they also did a kind of a cop-out, which I thought was a little bit it could have been done better, but the twist was so good and it was so creative that I actually thought, hey, I did not see that thing coming, so I'm going to applaud you. In other movies, I might have been less forgiving towards it, but in this case the story was strong enough, the characters were good enough, and the twist was so effective and made everything make sense on so many levels that I could, go with, the sort of awkward pace that they're having, and maybe this movie is slightly bit too long for its own good, and maybe some of the things is a little bit too convenient for, its own good, but considering that this is a, early 1950s British crime thriller drama, it holds up relatively well. But there is one thing in this movie that does not hold up relatively well. There is a lot of sequences that falls absolutely flat and feels a bit, like it should have contained more stuff, but it didn't. I don't know, but I guess that there was restrictions from, the censoring board or something like that. You can't do this, and you can't show this, and you can't talk about this, and because of that, they put up a lot of hurdles in front of them, which did not help this movie really much. But I will still say that if you've never seen Cage of Gold, do see it, because I think you're going to find it a fascinating story with a very good third act. And if it wouldn't have had that, I probably should have told you that this movie is a chore to get through. But because they, had such a compact and awesome finish to the whole thing, it works. But it also begs the question, why couldn't you have focused this movie more on what happens in that third act? You could have stretched out that third act to basically half the movie, and I wouldn't have complained. I probably would have given it a, much higher rating than what I'm going to do, but still, this is a surprisingly good movie. I give Cage of Gold 59 points. Some good characters, some good suspense, and of course a very, very good finale to the whole thing makes this quite compelling viewing. So I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.